the Canadian economy is in trouble. While the US experiences an economic boom, us Canadians face high unemployment, unaffordable housing, lower wages, rising costs of living, and a depreciating currency. And the reason is simple: the American companies are bigger and more competitive than ours. Our industries and businesses cannot compete. Just look at the downtowns of our cities, all dominated by American corporations. Canadians mostly consume American goods and services, with money flowing down south. American corporations come to Canada for cheaper labor, and yet we can't go down there for jobs. Now in the age of AI-driven job displacement, we can't even get their scraps, as they close their Canadian offices to keep jobs for themselves. This is a fundamental issue that cannot be fixed by having the right policy or politicians in charge. In the next 10 minutes, I will try to convince you that there is a way to fix our economy by creating a nationwide social network for Canadians, by Canadians. It will enable us to fight back against the dismantling of our economy by leveraging our core strengths, our values on collectivity and sharing. So we can discuss and make decisions together, share information and resources, connect with and support one another, hold ourselves accountable, revitalize our economy and create jobs. I call this the Great Canadian Shield Project. It is intended to unite Canadians from coast to coast by acting as a massive digital town hall where we can see each other, gather and discuss. This can be the most impactful national undertaking of the 21st century, akin to the railroads of the 19th. It will make Canada the first country in the world to have its dedicated social network infrastructure. What is such a social platform exactly? It is an agglomeration of all the current social platforms that also grows and adapt to the community it serves. A good start would be simply displaying all the users in one page, and their posts in another. You can then filter for the users and posts you want to see, with attributes like age, gender, interests, and more. This instantly connects you to millions of Canadians, whether in your city, province, or the country. For example, imagine you are alone on a business trip in Edmonton, and would like to go to a bar to watch hockey night in Canada. But you don't want to be by yourself, so you can just open the app, and filter for everyone in the city of a certain age range, gender, and who likes hockey. Then you'll see a map of all the users matching the criteria, and can message all of them at the click of a button. In addition to broadening your reach, we can also leverage other platforms to cater to more specific desires. For example, you play Candy Crush, and would like to organize a nationwide competition for everyone above level 500. Our app could integrate with the Candy Crush platform via API, and show you all such users in Canada. Remember, it's our own app, so we can do whatever we want. We can even integrate with a payment system to allow direct money transfer between users. Now for the important part: how does this help with Canada's economy? Before I answer this, we must agree on one key fact, that our economic problems are not caused by a lack of resources, but rather an inefficient distribution of it. In other words, by the increasing wealth gap. So the solution would involve reallocating resources in a more sustainable manner. For them to be shared sustainably, we need three components. First, we need the production technology to produce them. Then, we need the transportation technology to transport them. Finally, we need some kind of social technology to know where or whom to transport them to. We have great production and transportation technology. In fact, much of Western technological advances are focused on these two. But we don't have adequate social technology. Instead we rely on a system called capitalism to tell us whom to share the resources with. Capitalism is based on competition, and given enough time, there will always be one winner, like the game of Monopoly. The thing is, Canadians are not just playing Monopoly amongst ourselves, we are also playing against the Americans, the wealthiest and most competitive nation on earth. In a system that uses money to make money, the accumulation of wealth will always flow down south, impoverishing us Canadians. The Great Canadian Shield is specifically designed to provide the level of interaction needed for effective resource sharing, by doing the opposite of what the current social networks do. Currently, if you want to network for a job, you create a profile on LinkedIn. If you want a relationship, you create a profile on Tinder. You are limited to a single person at a time for a single purpose, and you have to create and maintain different profiles for each purpose. There is no information crossover. In today's fast-paced world, this is no longer efficient. It is no wonder why platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn went from social networking platforms to social media platforms, where the only rewarding use is to produce consumable content. People often have various needs and desires simultaneously. It would be a quantum leap if we could see someone as a complete human being, with all their attributes and instantly know which ones are mutually beneficial. This is why we need a unified platform where we can express who we are without restriction. The synergy of having everything in one place would unleash a new wave of opportunities. For example, say that you are looking for a job. You may not be the most qualified individual, but the employer hired you because they liked you for who you are, instead of basing on a bunch of criteria and checkboxes. In the age of AI where skills and knowledge can be easily acquired, we should shift our mindset to hire based on transferable experiences and shared values, and this is possible only if we can express our full individuality. Another example could be when you have a bright idea, but don't have the skills to carry it out, or the money to fund it. Currently, the crowdfunding platforms only allows you to seek funding when you have a prototype, so just having an idea will get you nowhere. With the Great Canadian Shield, you can easily accomplish this, and in multiple ways. You may create a public post presenting your idea, and stating that you are looking for people with money or skills, and let those interested reach out to you. Or, you can filter for everyone having the required skills or money, and share your idea with them all at once. You see, not only we make this possible, but we also drastically lower the required effort. When we lower the barrier for money to circulate, the economy will be revitalized. How do we currently stimulate the money flow when the economy is bad? Our government prints money. But not to give it to the people. The money ends up at the hands of the corporations through banks, so they enrich themselves even more, while inflation increases for the everyday Canadian. It does not take a genius to see that this only aggravates the problem. The problem systemically rooted, and we need an out-of-the-box solution like the Great Canadian Shield. To summarize, we have established that poor economy is caused by unsustainable wealth disparity, and investment in a social technology like the Great Canadian Shield can fix it by providing the transparency and information necessary to efficiently allocate resources. It is important to note that by efficient resource distribution, we are not artificially distributing resources like in communism. Far from it, we do not even define how or where to share them, that is left to the individuals themselves. We simply create an environment conducive to sharing and cooperation, rather than competing for individual benefit, as is the case currently under capitalist realism. Think about the game theory's prisoner's dilemma. It is a paradox in decision-making where, without the means to communicate, prisoners make a worse-off decision for all, as they pursue their self-interests. We are not that different than those prisoners. It's sad to think that, in an era of unprecedented technological development when we have more than enough to feed, clothe, and shelter everyone, we are still pushed into ever greater competition with one another, only to end up replaced by the robots watching over us. We need the Great Canadian Shield to break down those walls, so instead of fighting for an ever-dwindling piece of pie, we work together and enlarge the pie for all. Now, how can we implement it? This is the part that I am not sure of, but there are a couple options in mind. If we try to do this as a private venture, the investors will demand returns. I feel this could conflict with the platform's need to innovate. Look at the existing social platforms, they are designed to maximize profit and lessen risks, by keeping their model simple and expandable worldwide. The Great Canadian Shield does the opposite, it focuses on Canada only, so we can expand vertically by adding features Canadians care about. A true beneficial social technology should form a feedback loop with its community. It improves the community it serves, and grows with the community to tackle new challenges. If we must always satisfy the interest of the shareholders, we will just become another poor excuse of a social network that only produces brain rot and divisive content. That's why I believe this project is best done as a public infrastructure, at least partially. It also makes sense. The public sector is already responsible for roads and transportation for physical resource distribution. Since most of the resource distribution happens online now, the public sector should follow suit with a digital infrastructure. But what about the additional cost to run it? Wouldn't this mean even higher taxes? I don't think so, and here is why. Our cities are already spending hundreds of millions of dollars per year for the issue of homelessness alone, and it keeps getting worse. Government employees are paid six figures and contractors given millions to profit from the business of the poor. The Great Canadian Shield will cost a fraction of that, and instead of burdening from the taxpayers, it will take it from these inefficient entities. And even if we do have to pay a little more in taxes, the benefits far outweigh the costs when our overall economy is improved. This will not only alleviate homelessness, but also address inflation, wage stagnation, depreciating currency, unemployment, and more. The challenge is to convince the government to fund the project. Of course, our preference is to receive federal funding, but it may be too difficult to reach, and too bureaucratic. But nothing prevents us from starting small, and grow from there. We can try at the provincial, and most importantly, at the municipal level. Here is my take. There are hundreds of cities in Canada, we only need to convince one of them to take the first step. We'll entice the mayor, councillors, or population that their city can be the first one in the entire world to have its own dedicated social infrastructure. Not only this will be beneficial to their city, but it will also make history. They'll of course have to fund it for the development and server cost. But since we are not looking to make a profit, we can simply open source this project, and get all Canadians or worldwide developers involved. This lowers the development cost. Once the benefits are clear for all to see, it will be much easier to convince other cities. They would just need to cover the server cost for what their inhabitants uses, as the development is already done. The more cities join, the more it attracts. This will have a snowball effect of spreading to provincial and finally national level. And before you know it, the Great Canadian Shield is fully deployed. Besides, with the government, we could still work with the private sector. Not all investors requires financial gain, some seek direct power. In today's vastly unequal wealth distribution, there are organizations or individuals who would consider the cost of the project chump change, yet extremely empowering. If they own the platform which our entire country depends on, they'll have lots of leverage over what goes on here, from influencing politics, affecting decision-making, or simply relish in being the most powerful entity in Canada. Some of these entities could be the big tech giants. The Great Canadian Shield does enable a deeper level of human interactions than the existing platforms, and this is a goldmine for these corporations who has already exhausted the entire internet for AI training data. Of course, I would rather rely on these as last resorts, and much prefer that it be done as a public good. When I share my concern with fellow Canadians, I sometimes get the reply that we are resilient, and will just be fine. But are we fine, or are we just getting used to what's happening? Just to give my personal perspective. 2 years ago, my company gets about 70 applications per job posting, now we get over 500. I am also seeing homelessness, window smashing, and random attacks in my neighborhood for the first time, when these issues had always been confined to downtown Vancouver. This is not normal, and there is danger to getting used to our decline, like a frog being slowly cooked alive. For those who do agree that action must be taken, their focus is on choosing the right policy or electing the right candidate. The politicians will always say they have the exact solution, they would be committing career suicide otherwise. But doesn't it feel like things just keep getting worse no matter who we elect? As I explained, the nature of our problem is caused by capitalism and our inherent weak position against the US. It is too macro to be fixed using traditional methods. Trump understands this, and offers Canada to join the US. His real intention is to economically colonize our country. And he will keep on coming because the American economy can only be sustained by constant expansion and growth. But we can't allow that, can't we? So we need to come up with our own solution by leveraging our strength as a collective nation. The Great Canadian Shield Project is our best chance at this. It will act as a shield against internal and external threats while uniting Canadians and strengthening our economy. I don't know how exactly we will accomplish this, but I know that the more people we have, the higher the chance of doing so. Whether you are Canadian, or an immigrant who shares Canadian values and loves Canada, you are invited to join this project by following the link on the screen, at www.greatcanadianshield.ca. Thank you.